How are you doing? This is Ben Fisher. I'm with the Hosting News, and we're here at HostingCon 2014, and I am sitting here with the esteemed Jeffery Lyon from Black Lotus. How you doing, Jeffrey?
I'm doing great, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, you just got back from Korea, actually, recently, right?
Yeah, it's correct. I'm in Korea serving a military tour. I got some leave, so I decided to come out here and be at HostingCon, supporting the team.
Awesome. So protection in more ways than one, actually. So tell us a little. We were talking a little bit earlier. We were talking about how Black Lotus is really now expanding a lot. You want to give us a little bit more insight into how you're expanding and how you're kind of approaching service providers in the new marketplace?
Yes, certainly. So, years ago, we've always been known as a one city solution. We've been a Los Angeles-based provider, and we recently took on a private equity investment back in 2013, and that led to another investment from East West Bank for $6 million. Now we're using that funding to expand into other data centers in Santa Clara, San Jose. We have a headquarters now in San Francisco, an additional scrubbing facility in Ashburn, Virginia, one that will go live very soon in Amsterdam, and then later this year we're targeting a yet another scrubbing location in Asia. So we're branching out globally, and that's going to enable us to better service service providers, which are largely represented here at HostingCon, and of course enterprises such as Fortune 500, which we've been targeting as of recent years as well.
That's awesome. Excellent. So expanding into new locations, and you're able to help a lot more enterprise companies as well as web hosting companies, of course. So what else do you have new that's going on the horizon?
So right now, we're with a lot of the acquisitions that have happened, we're actually one of the only pure play DDoS mitigation providers. So our focus that we're here to discuss today at HostingCon is that we are a solution to the service providers. So we're that force multiplier that enables the hosting provider to go out and become a security solution. And the reason this is important is because as of late, we've seen a paradigm shift in the market where hosting providers can no longer just be hosting providers. They have to be hosting and security providers. So a panel that we're doing this Wednesday, our general session, is actually entitled Shift Gears, You're a Security Provider Now. Because if you're in this market and you're going to remain healthy as a service provider, you can't think of yourself as service or as security. The two have to become an integrated concept. So as it pertains to hosting and service providers such as data centers, Black Lotus offers this mitigation service over the network through protocols such as BGP to allow those providers to become DDoS protected, even if they don't have equipment on premise or experts on staff who are able to handle this for them.
So is this going to be like a white label type of program where they're going to look like the provider, or is it going to be labeled as Black Lotus?
It's completely up to the provider, right? If they want it to be white label, it's completely white label, because what we're doing is transparently protecting the entire hosting network. And then that provider has then their own prerogative to call it a Black Lotus solution, call it a partnership solution. They can gray label it, say it's in partnership with Black Lotus, or they can just make it their own and say it's their own technology. It's completely up to that provider.
Actually, one thing I got to say is that what's kind of exciting about that is not only you're helping to secure the web, basically, and that's one thing that Google's been pushing to do by pushing everybody to go towards HTTPS on every single website. So what you're doing is actually going to kind of help enable that even go further. I mean, we're not, of course, not with SSL, but just kind of securing the web in a much broader fashion by going through hosting providers.
Right. One of the problems that I've seen in the industry lately is this idea that security and hosting are separate, or that it's somehow a value add or an upsell. Not to say that a provider couldn't decide there's different levels of service, but part of our mission as Black Lotus is to eliminate that seam, so that when in the future, say a year from now, 5, 10 years from now, everybody who purchases hosting solutions receives a completely end-to-end secure solution, not only from DDoS attacks like Black Lotus is helping protect against, but from other types of threats such as OWASP Top 10 and solutions that can be delivered by WAF, for which we also have a solution. So our vision for the future is such that the end user doesn't have to worry about these problems anymore. And the way that's going to come about is by Black Lotus partnering with hosting providers and data centers and the such, that they can deliver this seamlessly to their customers, and their customers no longer have to worry about this as a problem or think about it as part of the equation when choosing a provider.
Gotcha. So it's more of a kind of like a seamless thing that just is happening in the back end. The customer doesn't even need to worry about it.
Right, and it will take some work, because right now we still have this situation where there's a lot of hosts that do not have DDoS protection. And so what we're doing today is helping bring that message to the service providers and tell them if you use the Black Lotus solution, you can white label, gray label, or simply resell a Black Lotus solution over your own network, retain that customer for yourself, and then differentiate yourself over the competitor and even drive additional revenue.
That's exactly what I was just about to say. Drive additional revenue. I mean, we all know that the hosting industry is all about increasing ARPU, right? So they've been adding new services, adding different products on, adding third parties. So this is really just another great way for hosting companies to not only help the clients with security and DDoS mitigation, but also drive new revenue as well.
Absolutely. And the way that happens today, say someone becomes a Black Lotus customer right now, they purchase the service, we integrate with their network, and then they're then able to say, okay, we're going to take either all of our customers or certain customers and provide them this protection. And if they choose to make that an upsell, then they're able to do so, and again, you get additional revenue. But what's going to happen in the future is that end users are going to start looking only to these providers that have these types of solutions in place for their solutions. So it's no longer going to be just a value add or an upsell opportunity. It's going to become an integral part of these companies' business. So the companies that have end-to-end DDoS mitigation on their network are going to be the ones winning customers, and the ones who don't have it or perhaps offering it as a rather expensive upgrade are going to be the ones who are left out in the cold, and eventually you'll see those providers going away, and the ones who are offering end-to-end security by default as the champions in the market. It's one good example is if you look back a decade ago, it wasn't incredibly common that hosting accounts had control panels. This was a value add. If you're using cPanel or Parallels or one of the other panels that were available, then you were offering a value add, and you were a preferred provider to many users who didn't want to have to mess with the command line and such. Today, you don't see that. If you're not offering a control panel for your hosting, then people are not buying from you, by and large.
Right.
We see the same thing happening with DDoS. If you don't have end-to-end DDoS mitigation on your network, in 5 to 10 years, you may not be able to operate a company in that manner.
That's pretty shocking, I would say, for hosting companies. So I think you better listen to Jeffrey and sign up to become a partner.
I mean, that would certainly be a good thing for us, right? But the bigger message isn't necessarily just buy Black Lotus and everything will be fine. Granted, we would love that if you did, because we'll take care of you and take care of your customers. But the bigger message is that you have to stop thinking of yourself as a hosting provider. Start thinking of yourself as a security provider. So even after you buy Black Lotus DDoS mitigation, your job isn't finished. You have to still think about this from all angles. There are other areas of information security which have to be covered, and the provider themselves needs to become, even if they're outsourcing, needs to become more intelligent about information security so that they can deal with these threats head on.
I mean, and speaking of threat, every single month you put out a threat report, right? So is it out of these threat reports that kind of started you going down this path?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was the recent discovery of the Heartbleed vulnerability that really had me thinking. Okay, we've always known security was a triad: an availability, integrity, and confidentiality problem, and all three have to be addressed. But the severity of the Heartbleed problem, and the fact that I personally noticed a lot of hosting providers didn't immediately know how to deal with this or what to make of it, um, led me down the road of, okay, I need to start thinking of our services as more than just DDoS mitigation. Granted, we are a pure play DDoS mitigation provider. Part of what we do is provide that mitigation, but another part of what we do is inform the customer through our threat reports. So there may be a security threat that's not directly related to DDoS, but we're still going to educate the public on it. And through our outreach at shows like HostingCon, help them become aware of these threats and better prepare themselves, whether the next thing that hits them is something like Heartbleed or is a DDoS attack.
Very cool. Well, awesome. Thanks so much for coming and speaking with us. We really appreciate it, Jeff. Is there anything else that you want to talk about?
No, not at all. I mean, I feel I covered everything, at least as far as it pertains to this week's mission. It's just, hosting providers need to, kind of reflect internally and see where they're at with information security. As a hosting provider, are you completely confident that you're able to tackle every threat? That's not to say that you have to have your own native capabilities through and through, but you need to have a plan to deal with everything that might occur, whether it be DDoS or whether it be a integrity threat like Heartbleed or anything else for that matter. And an extension of that is making sure that your staff and the staff you're hiring are prepared to deal with these threats.
Excellent. Well, hey, I'm Ben Fisher. I'm with the Hosting News. We're here at HostingCon 2014, and we're just wrapping up our interview here with Jeffery Lyon from Black Lotus, and we will catch you on the flip side. Thank you.